Yo, I'm Brendan. What's the best brokerage savings account between Wealthfront, Public, M1 Finance, and Betterment? Today we're having a savings account battle to see who gets us the most money, who has the best features, who we can trust the most, and what's the most convenient thing overall. Contender number one is Wealthfront. Right off the bat, it's already compelling because they have a 5% APY. If you have cash laying around at a bank somewhere and you're not getting 5.5% interest on it right now, you're missing out. Who knows how much longer this kind of rate will last, but for now we've got to take advantage of it. And they're super upfront about the exact thing that they're providing to us here because it's not actually a typical bank account. It's not just a normal savings account that's set up like any other savings account. It says right here on their website that they work with partner banks, which is a very common thing nowadays, to offer exceptional banking features with ultimate flexibility. They're big on these adjectives, aren't they? Delivered through a Wealthfront brokerage account. That's a good start, but let's dive into the rest of the features of this before we go all the way into the nitty-gritty of the FAQ page to find out what all the dirty details are. The Wealthfront savings account also offers unlimited transfers, which is very handy if you're transferring a lot. Free same-day withdrawals. I like the speed. Banking is typically very slow, so that's handy. You can pay bills. You can send and deposit checks through this, so it can really act as like your actual standard bank account with all the checking kind of features that you would expect. It works with typical like payment apps, which is very handy. Wire transfers are cheaper than average at just $10. I just did a wire transfer today to buy a new car, actually, for $25. So this is cheaper than that. And then, of course, you can transfer the money from your Wealthfront savings into your Wealthfront investing in just minutes. They've already got the money there in their account, so when it comes time to invest, boom, super fast. And this is one of the critical features that I think these accounts need to have to be the absolute best. That's a debit card. If I've got my money in cash somewhere and I can use it as flexibly as I want to, including a debit card, then I have no other needs. That's everything a cash account needs to be. And Wealthfront checks that box. Looks like you can buy sushi with their debit card in particular, very well lit sushi. And if you direct deposit into their account, you can get paid up to 2 days earlier. That's a pretty common offer for what's out there nowadays, but I'm glad they have it. And I haven't personally tried this feature, but it looks really cool. So what they're saying is that you can basically set up different goals to optimize where your cash goes whenever you deposit it. So they say that they have automation tools to route your money for medium-term goals. And in my mind, medium-term goals are the worst. These are the hardest, most annoying, tragic things to save for. Your emergency fund, your down payment, the new roof, something that's expensive enough that you can't pay for it in a month or two, but it's not like retirement level of saving that you can just kind of automate. I hate those things. So this seems like a really useful feature if it works well, if it's slick and easy. I think it could be really great. I assume what this would look like is, okay, I'm going to deposit my paycheck, let's say every 2 weeks. Then you could program it and say, put $250 per paycheck into this emergency fund bucket until I reach $10,000. Then once that's done, then move that $250 a month into the next bucket of, let's say, a down payment. And then after that, put it into the burrito and race car fund. When that reaches $30,000, then send me an email because it's time to buy a fun car. Anything like that that takes advantage of modern day technology to make our lives easier, I think is a win. Something I think everyone will want to know is this interest rate something that we can count on and rely on for an extended period of time, or is it going to change tomorrow? I'll tell you right now, for all of these accounts we're reviewing today, this is a variable rate. It will change regularly, especially if the Fed changes their federal funds rate here pretty soon, which who knows if they will or won't, then these rates will change. It could be a week from now, it could be a year from now, but we can count on this change happening. In my opinion, that makes any of these accounts less than the best place to store your money long term because of that changing rate and because of the unknown variability of that. But again, these like midterm goals are just the worst because you probably don't want to invest that money. Maybe you need it in 3 years or something like that, so it might not be worth investing. But then if this rate drops down to like 1%, then that's kind of crappy too. So far so good, but let's get into the FAQ page and find out if we have another shoe that's about to drop. Because it seems like things are never quite as good as they seem up front. Let's get let down together. Now in Wealthfront's FAQ page, they give us a little bit more info here, but it's largely similar to what we saw before. The one thing I didn't mention yet was that FDIC insurance is available up to $8 million through their partner banks. And you're going to see these kinds of claims across all these accounts we reviewed today. The way that they do that is they break out your money throughout several different banks. And the rule with FDIC insurance is you get $250,000 of coverage per person per bank account, or maybe per bank. And so then if you have 10 different banks, then that's $2.25 million. Or if you have a whole bunch of banks, it could be $8 million. I think this is a problem that very few of us have, to worry about maxing out our FDIC insurance at one particular bank. But if you're in that kind of mo money, mo problems scenario, then congratulations. Those are the kind of problems that we all want. In that case, if you think that you are going to exceed the limit, then you can send them a support message. There's just a few more interesting things I've found by looking at this. First of all, they have 3 different cash accounts for managing your cash. An individual, which is the kind that we're probably all assuming we're talking about. Then they also have joint and trust cash cash accounts. When you open those, you don't get checking features. So that kind of stinks because it would be convenient if you could do that. But you do still get 5% APY, FDIC insurance, unlimited transfers. You can have a small account balance to open it up. That's really nice. But it's strange to me that this person that you own the joint account with has equal ownership of the account, but somehow you can't have checking features. I can't wrap my mind around why that would be. That totally puts the kibosh on having a joint account with like a spouse or a partner or somebody like that who should have all the same benefits that you would in an individual account, yet somehow they lock us out with that here. I don't get that. Then in case you're interested in the trust account, the trust cash account is owned by your trust. So if you already have a trust set up, you want to put some money in there, you can do that here specifically with an account that kind of merges with your trust. I feel like most of us don't use trust. So let's move on to the public account and see what the deal is with them, because they're claiming you get even better interest than with Wealthfront. Public is claiming that they get an industry-leading rate for you, 5.1%. Little hint for you, Betterment earns even more than that. And they say it requires 0 fees, no subscriptions. You just getting money. You're just raking it in. We see some very similar kind of promises from Wealthfront here. No subscriptions, no minimum balance, no maximum balance limits, which is kind of a funny thing to point out. We'll take all of your money. If you have it, we will take it. We will hold it for you. Unlimited transfers, no fees, that's all good. And then literally on the same page, if you just keep scrolling down on Public's website, they immediately try to get you into some of their other assets that they offer, which is kind of cheesy to me. Like if I'm here for a savings account, just leave me alone. Let me use a savings account. I don't necessarily want to get into treasuries or bonds or royalties, but technically it is an option. So right now with the treasury accounts, they're claiming you get a 5.3% yield, which is slightly better, but they're claiming here that the net impact of those gains will be better than your traditional savings account because unlike that kind of account, you don't have to pay state or local taxes on the income that you get from having treasury bills. So you've got a higher yield, you've got a lower tax rate, so the actual net amount you keep should be bigger. It is slightly more complicated than a traditional savings account because what we're actually buying here are T-bills, and the rate that they're quoting us assumes that you're going to hold on to the T-bill for full maturity. To figure out what that is, you've got to scroll way down to the bottom of the page, find this light gray fine print, and do a nice fat zoom in to find out that the yield is an annualized 26-week T-bill rate as of February of 2024. And that rate of return is assuming that you're holding that T-bill for the full 6 months. So it's a little different than the savings account because if you had money in the savings account for a month, you get the full interest rate for as long as you have it there. If you get out of the T-bill in the month, you're not going to get that full rate. It is important to point out also that the investment income that you're getting from these T-bills is still taxed on a federal level. So at first they kind of make it seem like it's just a tax-free, amazing net profit situation. They've got a little asterisk down here that you can see investment income on T-bills is taxed federally by the IRS. So it's not like this is tax-free income. It's just taxed a little bit less potentially than your high-yield savings account income is, depending on where you live. I imagine some people watching this will say, I don't have state and local taxes to be taxed on, so this matters not at all to me. Like there's no difference. You can also find, evaluate, and buy bonds, corporate, treasury, muni bonds, all within Public, or at least the muni bonds are coming soon. They're not there yet. And then weirdest of all, and most interesting to talk about for sure are the royalties that Public offers and the way that you can unlock a new passive income stream through something like the Shrek franchise original music. This is such a weird way to get income if you ask me. I mean, it's like the person who wrote the Shrek music, you think about them getting royalty income off of it over time. So the fact that you can buy into something like this and you can potentially be a part of that royalty income is just kind of an odd concept. And it's something that I never had thought that someone would turn into something that's available to the public. But if that floats your boat, you can do it. I mean, as far as judging this against other forms of income and savings accounts and things like that, it's basically impossible. Who knows what the value of one of these royalties will do over the course of time? Who knows what kind of return they're going to give you? Like they're claiming the Shrek music franchise is giving an 8.5% dividend yield as of 2022. Will that last? Will Shrek suddenly become faux pas and it will go down in value? Will it blow up with a new generation and people will love it? Who knows? Let's dive into the Public FAQ page about the high yield cash account and just see if we can dig up any more dirt or disappointment together. The overall structure seems to be really similar to what most of these will be, which is whenever we deposit cash into the account, whenever it's not yet swept into a partner bank, it's protected by SIPC insurance because it's in a brokerage account. It's essentially invested money. Then once that money actually lands into the bank account, now it's protected by FDIC insurance. So it's an interesting kind of shuffle that's happening as far as I know between all these banks. And they do state pretty clearly something similar to what M1 states, that when you participate in this program, you have 2 brokerage accounts. So you have your actual normal public investing brokerage account that you think about and, buy and sell investments with. Then you have your second high yield cash account brokerage account. And that's kind of the means by which you access all these other partner banks and access their high yield savings account. Kind of a goofy way to think about this, but it's becoming commonplace nowadays. Is it totally safe? Are there any holes in the system? Are there any issues with this kind of structure? I don't think we'll know until there is an issue. And hopefully that doesn't happen. But oftentimes these things don't find their faults until they're stress tested. Overall, if we zoom out and look at the public account versus the Wealthfront account, they seem to be pretty similar, but public doesn't tell us anything about potential banking features like a debit card, like treating it like a checking account, like paying bills or sending and depositing checks through it like Wealthfront does. It seems like it's a little bit more bare bones, unless I missed some features here, which I don't see anything that I've missed. And so if you already use public or you really like them for some reason, it's a viable option as long as you don't need those other banking features and you're comfortable with the whole structure of the thing. Or maybe that's your holding place until you start investing in the Shrek franchise and you get rich. Then you buy a castle of your own, you get a donkey, you can start talking with an accent, it'll be awesome. Now let's move into M1 Finance and compare this. I just did a whole dedicated video on M1 Finance, so if you really want to go deep here, you can watch that after this video. But the long and the short of it is that M1 Finance actually has two totally separate cash offerings. One of them is closed, and one of them is still open. The one that's still open is called the M1 High Yield Cash Account, and this one is structured very similar to the last two. Wealthfront and Public have basically done the same thing that M1 Finance has done. You put all of your money in there, the money gets moved to partner banks, you earn 5% interest on it, everyone's potentially happy. They also have a joint account, so if you want to have that open with a spouse or somebody else in your life, you can do that. But just like the public account, it seems to be missing some of those banking features that Wealthfront offers. I don't see anything here about checks or a debit card or anything like that, and so it's kind of a bare bones basic version of a savings account. They do technically still have a savings account option where it isn't broken out into a bunch of different partner banks. It's kind of a traditional setup where you have a savings account at a bank that pays you an interest rate. But for now, they've said they've suspended new account openings for some reason for this high yield savings account. So my opinion of this is pretty similar to that with Public. If you already use the service, if you just want somewhere to stash some cash, get it out of your Chase or your Wells Fargo or somewhere where it's not earning interest, and you're okay with the terms of this, it makes sense to use an account you already have set up with somebody else. Otherwise, it's not the most feature rich. So far, Wealthfront for sure has the most features. And so far, Public has the highest interest rate, technically. But now we got to bring in Betterment, the heavy hitter with the highest interest rate overall so far, 5.5% APY. But that's not for forever. At least they tell us this on the front page so you know what's happening. It says if you open your first account with them, you get an extra 0.5% APY for 3 months. So they haven't found a better deal with a set of partner banks. They haven't got some special algorithm that generates them more money. All they're doing is sweating out a 0.5% extra APY so that you get a little bit of a boost for the first 3 months. And if you came here and you just shopped by the big numbers on the screen, you'd go, hey, 5.5, that's higher than the others. Let's go there. It's really only for 3 months. After that, it's going to drop back down to 5%, or if the Fed has changed the federal funds rate by then, could be even lower. They've got less FDIC insurance than others, even though they have a sort of program bank situation like the other ones. They must be using less program banks because they only have $2 million of FDIC insurance. They also have no fees. They also have no minimum balance. All that's very good. And here's another feature like that Wealthfront one that I think is really cool and could be really useful to create multiple savings goals and then use their automated tools to get there. This is just such a cool feature. It's so much better than doing it manually. To have the discipline to do that every single month or every paycheck is just a nightmare. To do this automatically, oh, it's the best. And then the terms and conditions for that 3-month kind of boosted APY offer are here. There was nothing in here that really surprised me or made me kind of feel sketched out by it. It's pretty much exactly what they claim it's going to be. So no worries there. But let's get into the FAQ and see what else we can find. Because I love you so much, I've read this entire terms and conditions statement to give you the basic summary. And in return, all I ask for is for you to subscribe. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. What this basically says is the same thing that the other 3 terms and conditions statements say. There is one critical difference though. There's no language in here about having multiple brokerage accounts with them. They talk about at these deposit banks having demand deposit accounts, or Betterment could also open several money market accounts for you, but it is still through your brokerage account. It's just a slightly different structure than with like M1 and Public, where they very explicitly say you have your normal investing account that's a brokerage account, then you have this other brokerage account that's actually your cash account, but it's really a brokerage account. We just don't tell you that unless you dig into the terms and conditions. And that's the one that goes and gets you this standard kind of APY. With Betterment, they say that it's held through your brokerage account that you have already got. So they don't open a separate one for you. but it is still kind of accessed through your brokerage account. So I'm guessing that the underlying structure of it is still very similar to these other two. It's not like a traditional bank account. It still has to feed through the investment system, if you will. They do say, though, that your deposit accounts are not protected by SIPC insurance, that they're actually protected by FDIC insurance. So somehow that structure is a little bit different because these other ones are protected by SIPC whenever you first deposit the money. Then whenever it gets moved to the partner banks, then it becomes kind of normal bank money and is protected by FDIC insurance. So it feels like something's a little bit different here, but overall the structure seems very similar. And unlike Wealthfront, there's no real checking features listed here unless you go into the separate checking account area. So Betterment Checking is sort of a separate account that you can open where you can do normal checking and banking kind of procedures through, but it's not part of that same cash account. So you'd have to have a separate savings through Betterment and a separate checking, where the convenient thing potentially through Wealthfront is it's all kind of just one account. All right, I think we've split enough hairs here to try and make a conclusion about all of these. The structure of all of them is extremely similar. The interest rate you get from all of them is extremely similar. Overall, the features are 90% the same, if not more. I think the real difference makers are that Wealthfront basically gives you a checking and savings account in one, so that's kind of handy. Public gives you access to slightly different options in terms of some weird stuff you can do with royalties, or you can jump into bonds and treasuries very easily if you want to do that. But that's kind of a different product offering than what we're really here to talk about, which is a savings account. The M1 Finance and public savings accounts are both very, very basic in terms of the features they offer. I don't think there's a huge clear winner. I think this is a pretty darn close race. And in the end, if I had to pick an absolute favorite, it's probably Wealthfront. But in the end, it kind of doesn't matter. These rates are all going to change anyway. This whole thing is going to be reshuffled in the next 6 to 12 months anyway, because all these rates are going to readjust. The features are probably going to change. What you need to do with this money may change. So here's what I would say. Whatever of these tools provides you with the most convenience, the most access to the money in the way that you need it, you should use that one. If you're just ready to get out of a big major bank and you're going to start fresh with one of these, I think Wealthfront seems like the most helpful overall. It's got the most features. It's got some of those automatic transfer tools to say for medium-term goals. All that is very, very cool, and I like that. What I don't like about Wealthfront is on their investing side, they have a standard kind of percentage fee. So it's 0.25%, which in the scheme of things is pretty low. But when you compare a percentage fee versus a flat fee, it's always going to add up to more in the long term, a lot more. If you're paying $5 a month or $10 a month to use some other service versus paying 0.25% here, the 0.25% is going to end up costing you a lot more. So that's kind of sucky. And I realize we're not here to talk about investing accounts, but the point of using one of these high yield savings accounts through an investing account is you can kind of do it all in one spot. So I'm a lot more passionate about the savings side of Wealthfront than I am the investing side. But the point of having all these options nowadays is that you pick the thing that makes the most sense to you. If you're going to invest more money and save more money by using one of these over the others, even if it's kind of for a frivolous reason, like you love the design of Wealthfront or you love the simplicity of the white and blue of public and you want to look at it and you want to use it and send all your money there and make the numbers go up, use the one that you like. There's not enough of a clear-cut winner here to say this one is way better than the others or that one is way worse than the others. They're all super similar. You do have a lot of options when it comes to putting your cash somewhere though, and that's why I made this video, and you can watch that one next. Because what you don't want to do is chop your gains by 1/10 and just leave the money at a big bank. What you don't want to do is get eaten alive by inflation by having your money in physical cash. You want to put it somewhere that makes sense. And so I go over all those options right here. So watch that video next. And if you're looking for a secret comment word, it's stork. Look at this little guy carrying a bag full of money like a baby. That's where money comes from, and babies, all from storks. And until tomorrow, I'll see you guys later.